Hi guys, it's little Mama Liv. Today I wanted to talk to you about my experiences with ME/CFS, and in particular how that's affected my pregnancy. So for people who don't know, ME, which is also called CFS, so ME stands for something really, really complicated. I'm going to try and say it. I think it's myalgic I'm going to put it there. It's really hard to say, so that's why everyone just says ME. It's also called CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, which is much easier to say and comprehend and understand. I usually do say ME, but then if I'm explaining it to anyone, I'll say chronic fatigue syndrome because it kind of instantly says what it is. So I was diagnosed with ME, I think about 2 years ago now. It's been a long process of getting diagnosed. It's a very difficult illness to diagnose. So the main symptoms of it are an unexplainable exhaustion. It's not like any tiredness you've ever felt before. It's not like you're feeling sleepy. It's not like you've just run a marathon or anything like that. It's just this really strange heaviness that it's really hard to explain what it is, and you don't know what it is until you have it, kind of thing. And that's what makes you realise that something's wrong for me anyway. It was something I'd never experienced before. And one of the biggest symptoms for me is the post-exhaustional malaise, which is if you do a lot of exercise or if you overly exert yourself, it can make you feel really, really poorly. I describe it as a bit like a hangover. So when I've been pushing myself a little too much, everyone's levels are different with ME/CFS. If I've pushed myself too much, then perhaps the next morning, perhaps a few hours later, I will feel really, really unwell. I've had it before where I could barely get out of bed, and again, it affects people in different ways, but it's a reaction from overexerting yourself. And another thing that can happen is that you can feel quite nauseated. Some people get really bad headaches and migraines. I actually don't, but that is a common symptom, I know. Another symptom is called brain fog, which varies in severity. It is when your literally brain feels clouded. You can forget names, you can forget what you're doing or where you are, and it can range from very small amounts of confusion that can be just explained quite easily and passed off, to really strong bouts of very, very severe confusion, to the point where I've actually thought I was having a stroke, but it's not. And brain fog actually isn't dangerous at all either. It's just something that goes on with ME. I don't know why it happens, but it seems to just cloud your brain. And yeah, there's quite a lot of other symptoms that go along with it. But the main thing is this exhaustion, this tiredness, and your inability to do your normal activities that you did before you got ME. With most people, ME comes about following a virus. I know there's been a lot of research about this. Not many people know much about ME. There haven't been many studies into it. It is something that is a bit of a problem. There's no cure. There's no real treatment. Everyone who has ME just kind of lives with it. It can get better. I've gotten quite a lot better. Some people have it for the rest of their lives. In fact, I'd say everyone has it for the rest of their lives, just in varying levels of severity. And so with me, I caught it from having glandular fever when I was about... It all started when I was about 16. I started getting really, really awful tonsillitis, terrible tonsillitis. If you knew me around that time, you know that I was just constantly ill with tonsillitis. And when I was at university, I eventually got my tonsils out after a long battle with that. And I didn't know at the time, but I actually had glandular fever, which was, I'm not sure if it was a result of the tonsil problems or vice versa, but it was a really bad virus that affects your glands and affects your tonsils and everything like that. And glandular fever is actually one of the most common ways of getting ME, I've heard as well. I'm just going to do this as a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert on ME. These are just my personal experiences. So if I say something that's wrong, please correct me in the comments, because I'm not 100% on it. I'm only going through what I know, and I've only had the diagnosis for 2 years, so obviously it's a constant learning curve for me anyway. And yeah, so I think it took a long time after my bout of glandular fever to actually realise that anything was wrong at all. While I was at university, I was going through quite bad bouts of depression, and I didn't enjoy my university years. I know everyone was saying, like, these are the best years of your life, and honestly they were some of my worst. But yeah, so never let anyone tell you that, like, or make you feel guilty about that. I really didn't enjoy university, and that was all happening at the same time. So I was quite tired, I was quite sluggish, I didn't really want to get out of bed, but I put it all down to my depression, and I never really thought about it much. And I've never been the most active person either, so I didn't think about how it was affecting me at all, really. And then it was quite a few years later that I started to notice that I was just not responding well to small amounts of pressure on my body. When I say pressure, I mean things like, what really made me notice it was I had some teeth out, and my recovery was awful. My recovery was just terrible, because they said, oh, you'll probably feel a bit bad for a few days, but I felt awful for about a week, like really, really awful. And I thought, this isn't right. And I'd started to notice as well at work, I was just feeling so tired. I couldn't get myself motivated. And I remember explaining it to my boss. I said, it's this exhaustion that I can't shake. And I remember I had a bottle of water on the desk at the time, and I picked it up and I said, that feels heavy to me. That feels really heavy. Like, that tires me out, just picking up a water bottle. And that is not right. That should not be a thing. So I went to the doctors about it, and initially I had a vitamin D deficiency, which I did have, and I still take vitamin D supplements. But then it got a little bit better, but it didn't get much better. I was still feeling quite bad. So I went back to the doctors, and they tested everything, like everything. And I had a complete clean bill of health. It was like absolutely all of my test results came back absolutely normal. And I'd heard of ME because I knew people that had had it before, and it did click in my head. Maybe that's what it is. But I hadn't put two and two together with the glandular fever thing at all. I just thought maybe I just got it. And then talking through with the doctor, she said about the glandular fever, and I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense. And when I think of it, I've probably actually had it for a very long time. I've just not really noticed. It's such a hard thing to diagnose, because there are no symptoms really other than this feeling of tiredness. There's nothing you can test for, is what I mean. There's nothing that comes up on any tests or anything. That you just have it. And it made me think about everything that I've done in the past. Like one of my first getaways with my boyfriend, we went glamping in the Malvern Hills, and we climbed up the hill, and that evening was completely ruined because we were meant to be going out for a meal. I dressed up really nice, and I had to make Julian stop the car because I was going to be sick, and I was so ill, like unexplainably ill. And when I look back at it, I was like, yeah, I climbed that hill. I climbed that really big hill, and I would never be able to do that now. Never in a million years. No, never would I be able to do that now. But obviously I didn't know, so I was exerting myself, and that was kind of a pattern that was happening, that I was exerting myself, I was pushing myself, and then being really, really ill, and it all made sense. And that's when I was given a specialist. She talked me through, she confirmed that I had ME. It's very much sounded like I had all of the symptoms, everything. And it's ranged from severity. At that time, it was really quite bad. I can remember feeling tired just walking from one room to the other. I remember sitting in, I used to have to, at work, lock myself in the toilets and just sit down for a bit, and I mean honestly I would cry sometimes because I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because I only had an office job. I still only have an office job. It was never strenuous. The worst thing I had to do was go up the stairs, but sometimes I'd have to take the lift. And I met my mum in town to go shopping, and I barely got to the first shop. I was absolutely exhausted, and I remember being just at home and just feeling awful, just feeling like I can't move around the house and things like that. I was worried that I'd maybe need a wheelchair and things like that. And when I said that people have varying severity, a lot of people with ME do end up in a wheelchair. A lot use mobility scooters, a lot use walking sticks. It all depends, and I did consider it. I did think that maybe that might happen to me, that especially for things like going out for long periods at a time, like going shopping or something, that Julian might have to push me around in a wheelchair. It was a consideration. But I did start to get better with seeing the specialist really helped me out. She taught me to pace my exercise. She taught me to think positively about it, which really helped as well. And yeah, so at the stage I'm at now, I'd say I'm very much on the mild spectrum of it. I couldn't do full exercise, I really can't. Yoga is the most that I can do. I can walk a fair distance now, but I definitely have limits. I definitely have a limit. I actually had a really, really bad bout of brain fog recently, where as I said, I thought I was having a stroke because I couldn't remember. Nothing made sense to me. I couldn't work out what was going on. I couldn't understand anyone's names. I was hearing names on the radio and they made no sense to me. It was really, really strange. And that was because I pushed myself too far. So I still have a limit. But I'm definitely a lot better than I was. And when it came to trying for a baby, it was a big consideration because obviously being pregnant and giving birth and all that is really difficult on anybody's body. And so I was worried about it. The worry is, the thing that can happen with ME is that you can have a relapse. So for me, I'm on the mild end of the spectrum, like I said, but if I were to push myself really too far, there is a possibility that I could relapse into going to how I was when I first was, or even worse actually. And that really worried me because obviously labour is so strenuous, and I didn't know how I was going to cope. But we wanted a baby, we've wanted a baby for a while, and there's no point in waiting around for it. That's what we decided in the end. And I looked at a lot of forums and things, and they all said the same thing. There's no point in waiting around. You'll be waiting forever because you do have ME forever, so it could happen at any point. And so I got pregnant, and so far it's been fine. It's been different, I think. I mean, I am tired, I am exhausted, but I think one thing that's really helped it along is my positivity. Having the baby has just made me feel really, really uplifted, and especially now the baby's kicking and everything, I can feel a real bond with my baby. And I found that being positive and being uplifted has really helped with my symptoms with ME. I find if you get yourself really bogged down, you can really get yourself into the symptoms and you can get yourself stuck. I'm not saying that positivity alone can cure ME, because I know that's not true at all, but I think it has helped me power through, helped me get on with it. And yeah, as I said, I did have a brain fog episode while I was pregnant, so I definitely still need to be careful. I have spoken to my ME specialist about it as well, and she said that essentially, I told her about how I was worried about labour, and she said that everyone has a hard time recovering from having a baby because you've just had a baby. And she said, just don't think about it too much. Don't worry about it too much as that's difficult, obviously. Just go with it. Just go with the flow. Your body knows what it's doing. And if you have a few more days to recover than what's normal, then that's just what you need. That's just what it is. And she said, she said she knows a few of her patients before who've had babies and they've been fine, and it is what it is, essentially, and what will happen, but pregnancy and giving birth is hard for everyone, and it affects everyone differently as well, because from what I've researched, some women have found that pregnancy actually made their ME symptoms a lot better. Some found that it was no change, some found that it was worse, so there's no telling what it can really do to you. The thing that we do know is that ME it doesn't harm the baby. You can still have a full, safe delivery of your baby, and everything can still be just as fine as if you didn't have ME, which is really good. That was another deciding factor to go for it as well. And yeah, so I'm a lot more confident about it. Talking to my specialist about it was really good. I have found that talking to my midwife and other medical staff that are specifically like obstetricians and gynecologists don't know much about ME, but I mean they can't know everything about every single illness ever. They know what it is, but really I asked my midwife, and more than anything she was just like, yeah, I think you'll be fine. And I was like, there's not a huge amount of reassurance, but yeah, I think that's a given, and I'm just lucky that I have the specialist that I can speak to that is what she does, and having that support network of both sides. So I have a specialist for my pregnancy and I have a specialist for my ME, and if I just take those both together, then hopefully everything will be fine. And yeah, so I think my advice to anyone, if you are suffering with ME and wondering about going through pregnancy and having a baby, I think just really weigh it up of how much you want it, because I'd say if you are in a severe state of ME at the moment, it's probably not the best idea, because this pregnancy has taken its toll on me quite a lot. But if you really want to go for it, just go for it. I'm really glad I did. I'm so glad I did, and I do feel better in myself. I do actually feel really positive about it, and it hasn't affected me as badly as I thought it would. I thought it would really drag me down. I thought it would cause a relapse. Obviously, I don't know what is going to happen when I actually go into labour. I'll update you after it happens. But yeah, we'll see. But overall, it's been fine, and I'm really glad it's been fine. So there's just a little message of hope to anybody with the same symptoms as I have, wondering if it's right to have a baby. And only you can know. Only you can know whether it's right to have a baby or not. And obviously talk to your doctor, talk to your specialist, and I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing. I'm sure they will. Yeah, so that's my experience with ME and pregnancy. I know that's it's a very small account because I've only had it for 2 years, but yeah, everyone has it differently. It's non-discriminate as well. Like, anyone can get ME at any time, any age, and yeah, it's just one of those things that I live with now, and I'm just happy that I'm in a stage now where I can work, where I can carry on with my life. I really miss going to the gym. I really miss exercising, but those are all things that I can work to. Those are all things that I have set myself as a goal. Hopefully one day I will get back into the gym, but if I don't, then I don't. It doesn't matter to me too much. And I'm going to have a lovely little baby as well, so that's just what makes me happy at the moment. So yeah, that's me. Thanks guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the like button down below if you like this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!